All right. I am not even going to do much of an introduction. It's just loser talk. It's just friends bitching, complaining about TTRPG stuff featuring Nate. Good,
Featuring me.
good contribution, Nate.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know
Yeah.
if I was supposed to say other people's names.
No, I'm not. Everybody can introduce themselves if they would like. Would you like? Go ahead. Rolling list. Start from the top. Going from duality down. I already did duality, so you can't say anything.
Yeah,
Grim, go
there you
ahead.
go.
Oh, I did Grim. Kai, go ahead.
Oh.
All right.
Hi, I'm Kai.
There you go. Nate. Whoop.
Hi, I'm Nate.
Cool.
Hey, I'm Baja Tom.
It's Pasha.
There we go.
You guys are kicking off on all cylinders.
Hang a girl, Frail's wife.
That's good. All right. And I am Frail. Good.
Like
See?
the comedian, literally on everything.
There you are. Yeah. You're the ketchup bottle. All right. So
Currently, I wasn't wrong.
we are. The theme for tonight was role playing in games, which a lot of us have done. Some of us better than others. Some of us not at all, and claim that we're role playing. Death isn't in here, so we can feel free to shit on him as much as possible.
Thank God.
Death is the only person I've ever played with that's constantly role playing his character by not role playing it. Yeah. So the first thing I have on this list is what do you expect to see when you come to a table? And I'll start with the DMs because that I think is a very interesting dynamic. What you expect to see from your players, and since I'll go from the top, duality. When you go to run a game, what do you expect to see from your players?
Well, lately I've been running a lot more one-shots than campaigns. So I just expect them to show up with their concept and have something fun and ready to play. As far as the role-playing aspect, how deep into character and all that, I have very little expectations because they're not going to be spending a lot of time with these characters.
Okay, but when you run your bigger stuff, are you expecting? I mean, one shots to me aren't the place to showcase your character. It's fun to have that voice, but not dive into who they are as a person. That's just me though. But when you are running a bigger campaign, like what do you expect at the table?
You mean in what specific capacity?
Just in roleplay in general, whatever you want to take it. I mean, for me personally, if somebody comes up to me with a character concept and they say, I want to play this annoying little brat who is loudmouthed and pisses off her brothers and her dads and is just, running around town causing a bunch of trouble and wants a back and forth with the NPCs, I expect that to come out through the roleplay. And if I offer that and it's not received by the player, then I'm kind of like, what was the point of telling me all that if you're not going to do it? Or if they do that in the beginning and then they just stop because they're not interested in it anymore, like what do you expect from people's roleplay?
I honestly don't have expectations. I'm cool if people want to get really into character and do all of that stuff you just listed, or if they just want to narrate what their character did and go on. I don't put any requirements or expectations on my players in that area.
Okay, cool, easy flowing, going.
Yep.
Graham, you run a lot. What about yourself?
It just surprises me a lot because I'll have groups that tell me they want a lot of role play and stuff like that, and then I can't get anybody to talk. I can't get anybody to interact. So if you want to do role play, I'd expect you to at least attempt the role play without me having to poke you with a stick.
What do you find?
But
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, the main thing I care about is that you come with a character. It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out or anything, but you have something that you're going to enjoy, not what you think everyone else is.
And what do you find is a really good trick, or not trick, but method in pulling that out of people and getting it to come out naturally?
I have them tell me the best things they like about their characters, and that way already I can kind of guess the way they're going to play it by what they really like about the character, and then I try to push in on that because that way I feel like it brings that out of them.
Okay. I like it. Tom, you're a pretty experienced DM. What do you got?
So I want to say something that Grim said, that sometimes you have a group that talks about how they want to role play, and then they do nothing but want to do combat. Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, we talked up and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna I want all this good role play, so I set up all this good role play stuff for them, and then they're like, oh, let's go kill some stuff. What? But I don't expect my characters to do a whole lot of anything except for know who their character is. I don't even expect you to know what their future goals are. I want you to think about those things as we play. Like with Vampire, I don't think a lot of people in that game know exactly what they want to do with their characters yet. I'm not sure they know exactly who their characters are. There are some good role playing in that game, um, but I think that getting to know each other as a group will bring out more role play in the end. So I like to keep things going and keep things moving a little bit. If that means that I have to throw in some combat to do some group bonding, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I enjoy your NPCs a lot. You do a lot better of a job of making them feel different. At least I feel anyway. It's very fun interacting with your NPCs, and you do a good job of pulling that out. And
I agree.
I agree. Vampire has been an amazing experience. I can't thank you enough for that.
I'm glad you guys are having fun.
Spike, are you solid enough to respond?
I I don't know how rated you're getting this show, but yeah, I can respond in my echo chamber.
This is. I mean, it's for. I'm just streaming it to stream it. It's for funsies. I mean, I don't know. There's just something that me, Nate, and Kai had talked about doing. So it's just,
So, with my players, I don't really ever have any expectation of. You're going to have people who are audience members and people who are spectators. And audience members, like just saying, Nate is a somebody who's actually going to be producing and showing a lot of role play. Where I would consider Death to be more of an audience member. He wants to watch and do the combat. So you have those the people who are going to be performing, people who are going to be watching, and they'll usually make their way out as time goes on and as we start to get into it. Normally, people who are role players and want to get onto the stage will have something that they want to do with their character, an idea, and I always try to accommodate that both with NPCs that I'm bringing onto the table, the adventure as a whole, adequate time for them to actually, expose their characters a little bit. And for my audience members, it really depends on which side of the audience table they're falling on, because I've had some audience members who are just like, no, this is what I do. I like to watch, and that's about it, because I like a good show. And then you have other people who are like, I want to get involved, but I don't know how. And in those moments, I will start trying to push the boundaries little by little and ask them leading questions along the lines of, how does this make your character feel? Or how would they respond in this situation? Or what is going through their mind currently? Because I'm trying to get them into the mentality of their own character to then bring forth that role play that they want to see. And from there, and once I finally get like a good snippet of what I feel like your character is or what I see your character is trying to be, then I'm going to start tailoring things a bit more to accentuate that and to bring that out and to I kind of almost bring the character themselves into their own narrative arc. So they kind of start like believing in themselves once again, finding emotions that they didn't know that they had, uh, trying to help out friends when they were very self-centered and only considered themselves. In Death's case, making him scared. That has been an accomplishment of mine. Apparently, bugs are the go-to there.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is just tailoring to your characters and just being a river to your people.
So on that point, when their RP starts to fall off and they're not acting like they are in character, they're just making decisions to make decisions because it feels right, and this is like open to all of to the DMs. At what point do you feel a need to say something to them to see if they're still happy about their character, or do you just kind of question a little bit and then let it go, because at the end of the day, it's, you know, they're still having fun. It's not that big of a deal.
It depends on that front, because if I see them doing something and it's very much in a preservational manner, I might let it go and then ask them about that later on to find out why their character would act in that sense. Once more, kind of trying to drill into the mindset. But I find in a way that's also kind of controlling of the person's character. Because I mean, sometimes you just got to get Wonder Boy out of a bad situation because you know you don't want your guy to die, and they'll act out of character in that sense. And I don't want to step on toes in that sense because it becomes like what the DM wants versus the player's version of fun. So I try to like draw that line if it's necessary. But if it's somebody who's like, I know for a fact that they are going to kick themselves about this later, I might slap the pause button for a second to be like, hey, real quick, is that what they do? Where I might even like flash something to kind of like remind them, like you as you turn to run away from this battle, you see your brother who died due to the Ulrith Nar, who you're currently running from. That feeling of vengeance that was once instilled in you, now ice cold as you turn to run. This way, I don't take away any of what their choice was, but I frame their choice as their character would be viewing it to see if the player themselves goes, yeah, no, I turn around, or if they stick to their guns and they bolt.
Okay.
But that's typically how I do it. Try and frame it to kind of ask the player through narrative, are you sure?
I got you. So you
And if
just kind
they say yes, what can you do?
no, I got you. You kind of got him along and help him with the thought process. How about you, Grim?
Usually, if we start to go too far off the rails, like I had a character that got corrupted by an evil cursed item. And they were like, oh my God, I saved the kid that's about to get hit by a carriage. And I'm like, okay, remember how far cursed you are. Are you sure that that was what you were going to go with? And I felt that that kind of took us out of it. So I stopped doing that. And so I'll basically give like a what the curse does now that you've saved that child. And so I kind of give them little bits of, I guess, lack of a better term, I give them a little bit of the stick because they need to realize that even those choices have bad consequences.
So you kind of parent him a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I still want them to act the way they want to act because it could be like the last vestiges of the good that's in them before the curse completely takes hold. And so I don't want to completely quash what their character would have done or what they would have done, but I still have to bring it back.
Gotcha. Tom?
Yeah, as I'm listening, I've been thinking about a situation like that. It's actually a situation where I role played in your one shot that I got for the Shrek's Who Killed Shrek one shot. And I'm the only good person, the only good aligned person in this group, and everybody else is following Shrek. So we all have different wants and needs for this adventure, and everyone else's was against mine. So I sort of turned my own interests against myself, and so we all ended up in prison, pretty much. So I regret doing that. I should have stayed good with my intentions as my character was meant to be, but it just took away from everything because I was doing my own thing for the most part, and it just felt like we had two separate games, one for the other group and then one for me. So I altered my gaming style a bit for my character.
I could have probably have defined things a lot better for that. I mean, that was That was a hodgepodge of mistakes. Yeah, no, that was. I think that was more on me in the framework of the one shot than it was on you guys.
Like I said, I think it had a lot to do with my alignment and their alignment.
Yeah, that's true. But they were. That's again. That's what we're talking about because they were all, I think, acting out of character. Duality. Sorry. Oh, he's gone. All right. Well, that's fine.
He's still in here. I think he's just muted. He's having some technical difficulties because he was bouncing in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's broken at
okay.
the moment.
You're good. Are you able to respond or no?
I don't know what the question was.
That's fine. I was just basically
I
saying
froze.
when you see people acting against how they've built their characters' role play up, and or either just lose the love of what they were doing, do you interject? Do you let it go? Do you do what Spike and Grim do and kind of help them figure it out along the way, or what's your process with that?
So I will remind them about what character concept that they were trying to build initially, and just be like, hey, by the way, you're not really acting toward that character concept that you originally designed. Are we going to be shifting away from it, or do you need some help kind of getting back on the rails here with it? I tend to have some people that they have some grand ideas for characters. They start them up and then they shift gears because what they wanted to do initially isn't really where they're at when they actually start playing the character.
Yeah, and that's understandable. And then if those people are stalwart in what they're doing, do you just let it go and take it for what it is?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like a massive shift in alignment, if we're using a system like that, or dogma, if it's a religious character, I'll just let it go. Otherwise, if the system has some sort of mechanic that can be pulled to get them back on track or shift them into something else, then we'll explore that route.
Like death? Not death, not death the mechanic, not death the person. Because death acts very much in alignment.
This will fix your character.
So
that was a knock
I'm
on.
old.
That was a knock on earlier the discussion in his Discord.
I'm old. I don't mind. I love using alignment. I think it was one of the first safety tools that was ever put on the table. It gave everybody kind of an idea of how characters were going to behave. World of Darkness had demeanor and nature as kind of its stand-in for that. And second edition D&D, and the older ones at least, they had penalties for acting outside of your alignment. So depending on why things were happening the way they were, I might pull that lever, or I might just suggest a transition to a new path for the character. It really depends on what's going on in that specific instance, and if it's sustained, and what is happening with that that mode of play. Is it disruptive, or is it not?
Well, that's what we're gonna get into a little bit, but I agree. I love alignment as well. I think I don't think people use it enough or appreciate using it. Going to the players.
I could do an hour on that.
Oh, we might. Going to the player side of things, Kai. What are you expecting when you come to the table with roleplay, either from yourself, the DM, or the group in general?
It depends on which group I'm playing with, because my regular group, the group I play with for my college from college, we don't do role play as much, but like when we do, it's kind of like in a way that's like kind of like we're like kind of third person looking at the characters and like kind of playing with them as how we would be playing with dolls almost. But in like other games, I expect different things from like I said, different people. Like I mean, honestly, Lavoxith has been very like RP heavy, and like I really like that so far. Um, it bringing like it having other people bring characters to a RP heavy game with like ideas of what they're gonna do is always much better than somebody coming in and like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just get it started. But like I'll admit, like, that's how I end up coming into a lot of RP stuff is like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll figure it out as we go.
Well, there's
So,
nothing wrong with that. Some people
Yeah.
can sit down at a table and just role play.
Mm-hmm.
Nate's really good at that. Lauren's really good at it.
I think I was really good at it for a while, and then I stopped doing a lot of roleplay in games. And so like I'm starting to get back into it, and it's something you have to kind of like learn over time, and you have to relearn how to do, I think, if you just don't do it for a long time.
Yeah. What about you, Nate? I know this is role play is like your bread and butter
Um,
when you're not trying to kill yourself.
Thank you. The importance to that to me has to be character staples. Like if you are role playing as a character and you're starting to shift a little bit from the staple of what you want your character to be, such as like I want my character to always do the right thing and be fighting for the right thing, but then all of a sudden he's just doing something half-assedly or robbing and doing terrible things. You're completely removing a staple that was important to your character. So I don't mind like the idea of role playing a character that has flexible alignment to some extent, such as I think one of the best characters is definitely the one from your campaign, Pharrell, and that is like making Remeses become Lumos that then reveals what Soma Remus was. Those alignments were so fucked because Remeses was like, I want all good things to be good. Lumos was that culmination of there must be justice or else. And then Soma Remus is this solemn of there is peace in death. It was this like weird how alignment was bouncing back and forth for that creator. And to me, that's what is important is as long as you have a staple of where you want a character to go, those role play aspects are so important because that's you still being you. It has nothing to do with like the influence of other people or their role play experience. They're reacting to your experience as well as your characters reacting to theirs.
I've run a couple of games like that, like long campaigns. Have you guys played the old video game Fable?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I ran 2 campaigns just like Fable, where they started out as townsfolk, and each of their decisions either pushed them further to the evil track or to the good track. And I found out that that was just a lot of fun to play with alignment like that.
We should also talk about alignment at some point.
Okay, Kai, calm down. Write down the list.
I was
Write that shit down.
You're gonna give duality and an aneurysm if you start trying to talk about alignment.
So many people just don't get it right or understand what it is, and it's so painful listening to people on TikTok talk about it. It hurts my head.
Yeah, it's a railroad is the most overused like bash
It's
of it.
stupid.
Ever. Yeah.
It doesn't do anything.
Lauren.
So role playing for me, like I guess most important thing would be, I mean, just in actually doing it. That's probably like one of the most frustrating things is I say this all the time. I tell this story, and I'm sure you're gonna eye roll frail because we had an evil campaign. We were all told we were evil, and we literally start this game like he tells us like horrific land we're in, slaves and like all this stuff, and as soon as we're faced with like we didn't have food, like we needed to find food for something, and s- they were like, oh, they were trying to like think of like really good ways to like do things, and I was just like, what? We are make some of these slaves go and like go forward for things like, oh, but they're doing this. I'm like, we're evil, and I was like, I'm like, what is fucking wrong with you people? And I was like, we are evil. This is an evil kid. I yelled at everyone because nobody was playing evil.
So just so you guys can truly understand how positively good they were trying to go, Travis was trying to set up farms. when they had 2 cities nearby that were supposed to give them food that didn't.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't give us food. And Travis was like, well, we can just make farms. I go, no, we're going to go over there and we're going to take the fucking food. Like, I was just like, what is going on? Like, I was like yelling at everyone. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I guess we could do that. And I was like, what?
Travis said, we just can't kill those people, can we?
I've played an evil campaign before. I'm playing in an evil campaign. That sounds ridiculous.
Kai,
Listen to me.
they didn't.
How do you
They were the most behaved players I've ever had in my entire life.
Kai, at one point, I said, we're evil. If we wanted to just say, hey, we have a ton of slaves here, we could probably just chop them up and feed them to people. And they'd be
For
fine.
clarification, they were not slaves. They were people who were dedicated to the hierarchy of society and were waiting
Doesn't
for
matter.
positions to
They're
open up in that
basically
society. And
They're
they
basically
weren't slaves. They were doing it completely under their own free will. They were just waiting. They had to do whatever they were told to do. And if they didn't want to, they didn't have to be part of that society. So it was completely voluntary. But they
my
were
goodness,
basically
sorry.
Slavery with extra steps.
yeah.
I was just about to say that.
slavery with extra
Somebody's going to get laid in university.
But yeah, I literally, like, I brought up cannibalism and everybody was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just like, I don't want to play this game anymore. And I was like, I'm actually being evil. And you guys are all just like, like,
pearl clutching.
Lauren's like, what a bunch of pussies. My
Yeah.
God.
I was so mad.
We
Like, I
s-
was just like, we're in this game to role play something, and you guys are all not doing it. But I will say this. I understand, like, getting comfortable with your character and easing into things. I get that. I waited. I did the whole hour and a half of this campaign. I sat through all these ridiculously good decisions, and then I snapped. But, however, I think the roughest part is, like, what you guys were bringing up as DMs is when everybody says they want to role play and nobody will, or like you have 2 people in like a group of 6 who are like really like trying to make the role play happen and nobody's giving you anything. Or then I feel like sometimes if you're a good role player and you're talking to the other good role player, I will get self-conscious at that point and be like, we're just like taking over the game. Like we're just talking a whole bunch because I can role play back and forth with Nate. Nate and I can just talk back and forth.
Talking
And then
a
I'll be
lot
like,
right now.
yeah, well, there you go. But I'll feel like I could do that. Like I could talk back and forth with Nate, or I could talk back and forth with whoever, and then I'm like, I'm talking too much, and then so yeah.
Well, that's a good thing because that brings up the next part of what I have for everybody to jump in on. When is RP too much? And Lauren, you pretty much just started talking about that. So when you think you're hogging the spotlight with not the full group,
I feel like it because I know that I've like talked with other people in the past, and somebody had been like, I mean, they just talked the entire time. And while I get that, like, yeah, that's really frustrating. That person talked the entire time. I also want to be like, sometimes we need to like interject ourselves, but also if you're not comfortable with doing that, it's not fair. Like, if you're not a person who's comfortable just jumping in, I feel like unfortunately it falls on the DM to be like, all right, that's it. You've had your talk time. Shush. Now move on to the next people.
with that, yeah. When if you were running, most of us run games. Also, with that, a good question for you guys is when do you feel like you need to stop that when it's too much? So go ahead, go for it, discuss.
Well, I do one-shots mostly now.
How many times are you gonna tell us that?
Well, it's important for this part. I'm going to keep saying it as many times as I need to say it. All right. So I don't know how many people are popping in and out of this because I got it watching on. I'm watching this live on TikTok too. The number of people keep fluctuating. So anyway,
every time somebody comes in, we'll tell them you mainly run one shots.
One shots?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
One shot.
Well, no. So a lot of the games I run, I have to be really cognizant about the amount of time that's left in that session. So now I just lost it because you derailed me 5 times.
Duality, real quick.
One-shot.
Question for you. Do you run one shots by chance?
At least twice a week, actually.
Oh, that's a lot of one shots.
Yeah, if I could actually have people that would show up consistently for a campaign, I'd be running like 3 right now. Consistency's the issue.
Yeah.
It is.
So if you have 2 players in a one shot, let's just say you're by random chance you're running a one shot, and you have it with 4 characters, and 2 of them are just constantly going back and forth about what needs to be done, and they're the only ones really progressing the story or just causing roadblocks. Like, how would you handle that?
Yeah. So I set time limits and like hard real life time limits, and I will let them know like, hey, look, we got to wrap this up in about 2 minutes, and then I'll have something in world that's going to press that urgency as well. Just because they're role playing doesn't mean everything behind the scenes is frozen. The rest of the world is moving on while they're talking. So I will, remind them, hey, look, while you're doing this, the clock is spinning, and this is the amount of time we have left, both for the session and for you to stop the thing that's you guys are actually trying to stop. You can sit here and role play and talk your plan out on how you're going to rescue the merchant that got kidnapped, but the longer you take doing that, the further down the road they are getting, and the harder the trail is going to be to track them.
Yeah, on one shots, you gotta have that clock ticking, because if you don't, they ain't one shots anymore.
No.
Yep.
We're trying to say, Grim.
I'll do that in regular campaigns as well.
Get you a 2, 3, 4 shot, because
Yeah.
I can't seem to keep myself on the damn stopwatch. And you know me, like the first game I ever played with you, I love role playing, and so I brought my favorite character, which was Grim. And
Love that
I
character.
love to role play Grim, the big dumb Grim, man. It's my bread and butter. I love Grim. And so a lot of times you guys were like, okay, we got to move forward the story, and I'd forget. And so I am horrible about putting myself on a stopwatch. I'm terrible.
I didn't think you were a problem at all. I know the story and what was going on was rushed, and you really had no idea what was going on, which was a failing on my part. But I mean, I felt your moments were very known. I think everybody loved playing with your character.
I think your moments were fantastic.
Yeah.
They were so good.
I'm gonna tear up over here.
Not to say anybody else's wasn't, but when we had you and Death in the same group, one person shined more than the other.
Oh man.
Nobody else for too much roleplay?
I mean, there is a point in which like you can be role playing too much. I just think that like it's one of those things where it's like easier to kind of well, not easier to expect, but like you should be expecting that like whoever's running the game should be on top of that kind of stuff, because it should be like everyone should be working together to make it a good game, but like there's one person who can look at from the top and be like, hey, like this is going on for too long, like you guys need to split up. I do think it's really rough when like you're in a group and it's only like a couple of you like actually kind of being at the like doing the RP, because like I've done that before and it sucks, because like we just all want to like go and have fun and like be at this big group and like have fun, and then only like 2 of us are like keeping everything going, and it's like, really? Because like especially like, I mean, a couple of you've played Fist before. That system is like super, like you have to be like running around like doing stuff all of the time, and like when like you're not all like as involved as each other, it's not nearly as fun, which is why it's better when you get people who are interested in like actually doing stuff in the game.
One day I'll be prepared for a hot fisting.
Oh god.
And I'll be excited to see you there.
Oh boy. Walked right into that one. Anyway.
No, I did that
Turns like into a sock puppet.
Walked into my own fisting.
Letting RP go on, because I agree with you, Kai. It then comes down to the DM to get all the cats in the basket. But and Lauren gets on me for this all the time is I will start getting self-conscious even. And you've seen how big the table has gotten. We go from 6 people to 13 and you haven't seen me do the 13, but trying to get everybody their own time and then giving them a session to communicate and then making sure I cut things off a lot and when they're just getting to their hot spot, and because I get in the back of my head like I gotta move things along when there's no critical juncture. It's just people role playing, and I for some reason feel like it's gotta get going. And Lauren gives me shit for that all the time.
Well, because sometimes I'll give you crap because there'll be times when it's like you realize like that I've said that to you and you're like, I'm just gonna let this go. And I'll look at you and I'll be like, you're gonna let this go? This RP is just gonna keep going? But like we had a real intricate thing going, it was back and forth, and then Bill's just like, that's enough, and we're all like,
He's like,
Excuse
this is
me,
the hell.
sir.
This is the hell.
yeah,
that stage hook comes out. It's like, all right.
yeah.
All right,
Like
we get
it's
it.
like he will like it's like he'll be like, I remember what Lauren said, like I need to let things go, and I'll be like, not this. Not
Yeah,
this.
this is not the one.
Yeah. This needs to
Stop letting
speed up.
death kill things.
But it'll happen.
Let it go.
What'll happen is it'll be like as the game goes on too, because as the game will go on, then he gets more self-conscious, and then he starts cutting people off, and I'm like, we're starting to get into the groove. Like,
Yeah, I agree. Especially in our vampire game, I love to let you guys roleplay. I really do. But my problem in that situation is people will go and have conversations with somebody else that the rest of the group shouldn't be hearing. And then I created a separate chat for them to go talk in. And then they're like, oh, well, why did they go? And I said, so you can't metagame.
Yes. Oh my God, Emery.
Oh,
I'm happy that you did that actually, because that happens so much just in the one I was in. So I was sitting there like, how often
Yeah.
was this happening before I came in here?
A lot, like especially with Death and Emery. They, there would be conversations happening across the room, and they would be on the other side of this huge grand, ballroom, and they would hear everything, and then they both got offended because the NPC and the PC were having a discussion about them, and I was like, see, this can't happen. I've got to do something to where they can't
Yeah.
hear because it affects the game, not in a good way either.
Yeah. That also just shows the limitations that they have on their roleplay, that they can't understand how to be like, I need to understand as a player I can hear this, but my character does not understand this. My character isn't a part of that, but you could definitely see a lot of people. I like nothing against Phoenix, but it's just like there's many times I felt like she was just a parrot on my shoulder everywhere I went. And I just was like, where'd you come from?
I mean,
That was so funny when you were like, are you in here? Like,
yeah, because I like just turned in real life in my chair and just was like, are you here? Like,
and she was like,
what
oh
is this?
no, I'm not. Like,
right.
I know. I really was expecting her to be in the back of my car when I drove Frail's character away.
that was so funny.
I was like, I'm going to look in the rearview mirror, not see her reflection, then look back, and there she is.
Yeah, metagaming has a place. It can be a very beneficial tool, and it can be a crippling tool. But
I personally love when, like, if you're in a game and you hear something, and then you role play your character like they got no idea. Like, it's because it can be so fun. Like, if you hear something and they're like, whatever we do, we can't touch that red button. And then I'm in there, and I'm in there, and I don't know this, and I'm like, here's the button, and I'm just like.
What do you think this red button does?
oh,
Or perfect example, I didn't know that you guys were down in the sewer, and I'm just like, dynamite time.
straight up one of my favorite things, because I was just yesterday I was playing a fist game with some of my friends in another server, and they were like, I was playing an alien, and so like something would go on, and I'm like, what is that? Like, it just as like some alien character. Like, I think I asked what gambling was. Just like meta knowledge is so fun to like just play with because like obviously I know what gambling is, but my character no idea. He's an alien.
Yeah.
That's why Grim was so great, because he had no idea what was going on, so it was easy for him not to metagame. He just legit didn't know what was going on. No shade on you,
The
Grim.
great thing is, in real life, I don't know what's going on.
Right, yeah.
That's what he's Grim. I don't know what's going on either.
Anybody else have anything else they want to add? Too much RP? Going once? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I could add something. I feel like when it becomes too much role playing for me is when there's more dead air than there is conversation. And the secondly is when the conversation just becomes a game of one-upping.
Yes.
Like, because at which point in time the conversation isn't progressing. It became a circle at some point. And it's at that point where the DM just kind of has to step in and go, a circle. So we're going to stop this. Orcs attack. Let's focus on the other members of the group. And just like have that narratively settle itself off camera and then come back. But in other games that I've run, I've also done something very similar to, I think it was Thomas or Grimm that said it, that I have a separate channel for other people, and it just has us and me in there, and it's private so that like they can type away in there. And then later on, I can read it, find out if it was relevant. And if it was relevant, I'll recap it if need be in the next game. So, but only if it's relevant. If it was just like two players bantering, it's just like, not really a point in getting back into this.
Yeah, I think that would be where my note would kick off, because that's where it becomes a big deal to me. Is like if you're role playing and your role play aspect just becomes a time waster bullshittery type of thing. I'm like, that's cool that you're having fun with your character, but that's also like, it's time constrained. Everybody's making time to be here within this like 3-hour or 4-hour gap. Like, please be respectful of that. And sometimes, yeah, like people will either have their moment with their characters talking, and then all of a sudden you start role playing in the game and actually talking with PCs and NPCs, and then all of a sudden you're still hearing them talking back and forth still while you're trying to do this other thing. And you're just like you're not that priority right now.
You're not that priority. I'm going to use that.
Like, the camera's adjacent from you now. Like, go ahead and talk about what you guys want to talk about. If you want to keep bullshitting, turn it into text form, back and forth at each other. But if you guys are like, hey, what happened? Maybe shut up.
I can't wait for you to run games.
I said there is the opposite, but I don't know how Pharrell deals with it. It's kind of like when, I hate to pick on Death, but he's so easy to pick on.
I'm sure he'll appreciate it. Go for it.
Like 5 seconds in, he was like, I am Death, the all-knowing, the almighty. And then you're like, here's a puzzle. And he's like, oh, fuck this. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
Right? What?
Well,
you guys took too long. I got high.
There's a double-edged sword with that. He doesn't want to do puzzles, so he has two modes. He's either not going to participate, or he'll do the worst thing, which surprisingly is worse. He tries to rush it along. And that's when I get annoyed. But and that's where I said, like, he's acting in character, but not acting in character at the same time.
There's a moment where character is just him as a player, because if his character is like that for every character he's played, it's just him.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Even in non-fantasy role-playing situations, I can attest to that.
Yeah. Yep.
The puzzle I got, well, case in point, I got him a puzzle for Christmas, and he destroyed it because he couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, he
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was. I'm mad too because I told him if he couldn't figure it out to send it to me, and he ripped it in half like a child.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna send him a Rubik's Cube. I'm gonna just send him puzzles every year. So, and playing with Death as the newest and freshest person to play with him, what's it like, Duality?
It's actually not that bad. I'm used to the low role play in it for the combat, and that's pretty much it type player. I'm okay with that. It doesn't really rub me the wrong way.
I mean,
I know what to expect.
we all love Death. Death is one.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
the first
yeah, I
person
love Death.
who came to me on TikTok. I absolutely love Death. I just love shitting on Death, and he knows I do.
Yeah.
But so don't feel like you can't throw him under the bus and say some
No,
really terrible
his
stuff
play
about him.
style's his play style's perfectly fine for me. I'm used to like all gamuts of the role players from 0% to 100%. He's somewhere around the 30 to 40% role play. The rest give me the combat and let me do big numbers and show off system mastery. And that's chill with me. I'm cool with that.
Okay. Spike was when Spike's first introduction to Death was they were a married couple, and Death completely forgot what their role play was, and Spike capitalized on it.
But for the record, we were a murder couple. We were trying to kill each other, and if other people got in the way, well, them too. And for what it's worth, I stuck to the script. I played character.
Right.
And you did it well. You definitely stuck to it well.
Spectacular.
Yeah,
I thought
Go ahead.
I thought Lauren was going to drive to my house and kill me.
Yeah, me and Penguin were literally like start getting to a point where we tried to play our characters actually trying to fix their relationship. It was so funny to me because I was like, oh, of course it would end this way.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So
As I'm sitting over here, like, sorry guys, just business.
poor Tom and Chaos were like of arranged marriage. It was the first time meeting.
Right.
So one of the bigger things is when you have people who really get into their role play, it can sometimes be off-putting. It can sometimes be enjoyable to watch somebody go that in depth with the voice, and keeping it up through all situations in life. In general, how deep do you guys like to go when you play your character? Not an NPC, because I feel like you naturally have to kind of deep dive that just to give it flair and flavor, but your player character could just be a bland fish and still work in the system. So how deep do you guys like to go when you make a character? For a campaign.
Balls deep.
Yeah. Not a one-shot. And that wasn't me throwing shade. I just feel like it's a different mindset building that RP for a campaign character.
For this, I have to throw mad props to Nate. Playing Skinator, and that voice is just fantastic. I personally, as a player, cannot do a voice like that constantly. I don't mind doing it as a DM for NPCs and things like that. Not a problem at all. But I don't like a voice because I forget and mess up, and it usually just ends up making me look bad. So for the people who can do it, I give you mad props. It's just not one of those things that I can do.
Give us a Skinator line. Go ahead.
Do you want me to get my bird calls to you?
No, please. No.
They're really close. They're really close.
No bird calls, please.
Jeez.
I've only ever heard that voice used either for memes or for singing Christmas carols.
Oh yeah. You mostly have only heard of that. Yeah, when I first made that character, it was practically meant to be Skeletor playing as a rip-off character because he's trying to hide from an alternate universe of He-Man into that universe. There's a weird backstory to it, and then it just stuck. Yeah, it just stuck, and then now I have him in Ed's campaign, and it cracks me up. But yeah, like it started out in a Christmas campaign in Chiffon's game, Bisquicks, and then I did it again as a joke, and then the third one, it stuck around.
Yeah, he's a multiversal threat.
Yep. As soon as they said that, I said, I can dig it. We'll keep going. I even had him be really serious in one of the episodes in his campaign for a bit. And I was like, that's kind of fun to have a character that's mostly meant for laughs and gaffs that all of a sudden just went real serious and still kind of had the voice going on, but different tone.
I'm in the same line as Tom. I would love to be able to stick with a voice, but oftentimes I will forget what I was doing originally. I did it last night. I was playing Gordon Ramsay and I kept forgetting, like, because he would ask me a question, I would just start answering it, and then I'd be like, oh, crap, that's right. And then I would, like, switch back. Like, I am not good at keeping up of a voice. So that aspect, I do give major props to people who can do that. I also am terrible at doing that as a DM. I don't like changing voices, but it's fun to watch Frail start off Indian and then switch to Scottish and then ultimately end in Cockney. So, like,
I'm
all
also
in,
an accent chameleon. That's
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God, I love
Italian.
it. I love when he starts, and then if somebody's talking to him in a Russian accent, but he was Indian and now he is Russian, and I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You were an Indian shopkeeper. What happened?" And he's like, "I don't know."
Or I play
He's done really well with Karma stuff.
yeah. I play one Italian guy or voice for 7
Yeah.
different people in succession.
That's fantastic.
But then again,
Man.
all Italians sound the same anyway. I can
Oh
say that.
man,
I'm Italian. I
He
can
gets
say that.
can-
It's okay.
He gets
yeah.
canceled tomorrow for that.
But
Have you ever thought that maybe that is the character and it's been a long running doppelganger who is just like imitating the people who he's running into?
every
That would be kind of
NPC.
fun.
I'd expect that in your game
Well, of
because
course.
you do wacky, and then I mean wacky in a good way. You do wacky concepts like that, so I would definitely expect to have somebody like that in your games.
You know me too well.
I forget what the beginning part of the question was. Like, what was it too far or what?
How
Just
deep do you
like
like
how
to go
deep do you
into
like to get?
character?
And you
Oh.
like to go deep in the. You're deep in your character's morals and stances, but you don't really go
Yeah.
deep as your character's voice. But you are very much thinking how your character thinks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I like to stick to what I say my character's background is and stuff like that. Like, there was one time when we were playing with Travis, I think it was the one with the hunt. I don't remember what that campaign
The
was,
auto
but
hunt.
we had literally just all met each other, and Travis was like, "Yeah, so we're all gonna we're
Yeah,
gonna go do
so
this," and I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, I'm definitely not going with you. I don't know you." And he was like thrown away. He's like, What? I was like, I'm not gonna go with you. I don't know you. You are a stranger. And I was like, and who are these people? And like he was so mad because I was role playing my character and he was like, we like he like didn't like he was like, What well, we need to go find this thing. I go, why would I do that? I can do it by myself. I don't need you. And like so that is the one thing that I do that definitely I think that you should stick to. I mean, if we all just met each other and I don't know, I just feel like role play that. Just like I really like in the Voxes we're doing right now, we have all known each other. And so like it's not weird that we're all just like, yeah, let's do this. Like, let's go. I know
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I know that about you. Yeah, why not? And well, oh yeah, cool. Is it that lady? Like, oh yeah, she's kind of a jerk. I get why you'd be upset by that sort of a thing. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
enjoy that.
for
I
sure.
like
Um, as I kind of said earlier, I don't do a lot of like developing my character before I make them usually. But like I'll come in with like a character concept and then like I just kind of like whoosh, I go in and like as soon as like I kind of figure out what the core of the character is, I just kind of like stick to that character. Um, and like those like ideas and like everything. And so like um I get kind of embarrassed to do voices, but like sometimes I'll do a voice for a certain character or something. Like I've got a character who's basically a Khajiit. And so he'll
Mhm.
be like, I have coin if you have wares. But like that's the best I can do for like voice.
Pretty
Um
close.
yes,
Yeah.
Khajiit
it's
has
pretty close.
coin.
If you have wares. But I mean it really comes down like it comes down to like who I'm playing with and like what kind of game. You know how it is. Um yeah, I don't know. It's just
I
Okay.
think
it's
I
just kind
think
of embarrassing to get back into role play again.
it's okay. It's like first time jitters all over again. I
Yeah.
think Theo is going to be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Already with how you did the poem and tried to work that into your character and use that is so important because when it comes to role playing, and I guess works in this topic of deep role play, you have to stem it from a root within your heart somewhere where this personality works with you. And if a poem connects you to your character, that's the best route to go.
Yeah, and Theo's kind of a little socially awkward, kind of like me, so
Right. So in some way, it's going to help them like flourish.
yeah.
I love getting into my characters and doing voices for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're great at it.
I love voices. It's one
Absolutely.
of my favorite things. I just don't do them very well myself.
It's not everyone's thing, but once you get into it, you'll get into it.
Accents and dialects, that's another whole story.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, those are voices.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. It's a different. This is not like necessarily super related. I guess. I have feelings about this as an accent person. Because like you can have impressions that aren't like dialects, and you can have dialects that aren't impressions. Dialects and accents that are, yeah, they're not completely interchangeable. Is what I mean.
Yeah. True.
Okay.
I personally like
Oh.
to get into my character's voice and all.
It's because you're a thespian.
Although sometimes it, yeah, a little bit.
No, you are. It's okay. Be proud of who you are.
Ah,
Now, do you
sick of being myself.
were you that way? Did you start as a DM or did you start as a player?
I started as a DM, so a lot of my internal acting and stuff came from like voicing characters. And I mean, being a voice actor kind of helps a bit, I guess, as well, because then I already have all the crazy voices by hand. Like, for example, I've actually played an Elder Scrolls game, and I also was a Khajiit. So the whole Khajiit as wares if you have coin comes kind of naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
That
I'm
was
just
good.
playing
But
a regular old Pathfinder campaign with my Khajiit.
but I also kind of liked having little weird things about my character, like that Khajiit also liked to sunbathe nude because he was a cat. So he would go out and sunbathe, and then one of the players started hitting on me at some point, and my character just wasn't picking it up. He's like, "Oh, you two also want to come out here and sunbathe? No problem. Have seat. We bathe together." This player spent so long just being like, have you ever thought about doing something else while we're naked? What, like cleaning? Of course. Why would you not clean? You are already naked.
It's the best time.
Devil does not get this question. Can you lick on crotch? Devil can lick on balls. Very helpful.
There's a whole new meaning to hairball.
So on that note, we were canceled today.
Giggity.
Thank you for joining us today.
Have
Although although coincidentally, on a prior topic, I've also had problematic characters, like everybody's favorite cleric, Brynwyn Grisbane, best cleric in all the realms, and now God. The players did not know how to handle him because he had a charisma of 6, and I basically played him. I played him like the person you did not want to come into your fast food shift. The very first thing,
Oh God.
the DM and me went back a bit of a ways, and he's never had a fast food job before. And we were playing like basic fantasy, and I saw a spell, and I went, "Perfect! I'm going to use that." It was an Oriasin, and I walked into his bar establishment where we were all meeting. Went, "Barkeep, let me get a glass of water." He goes, "Oh yeah, water. That's fine. It's on the house." I figured a dwarf like you would drink. He goes, "I do. Water to wine. Thanks for the drink." And I walked away, and he goes, "I feel like I should arrest you. Is that a crime? You just got a water cup and filled it with soda. What just happened?"
That just reminds me of a character that I had that was kind of difficult for people to deal with.
But
Well, that's
Go
kind of
on.
like my next question, Kai. At what point do you get annoyed with somebody else's role play? So, what was your reverse situation?
Well, so they weren't like necessarily annoyed with my character, but like he was he was an evil character, so like sometimes that doesn't always work in like context. In this context, it did. But also like they weren't exactly sure why my character was evil because he was just like, "I'm gonna raise the dead, whatever, it's fun." And they just couldn't like understand why, and it's like he was just doing it because he wanted to. Like there wasn't
Sounds
like
like
a
Beth.
huge
Because
reason.
I'm a psycho.
Like it was. There, I guess it was kind of that, but also like it was very much like he had his own like ethics and stuff, and like but like otherwise he would just kind of do whatever.
That's the problem with all you Gen Z adventurers. You need a reason to do things. Let him just be crazy for once. Take your pants off and run in the street.
So like as for like why he was with the group, like he did like have reason for that. Like I mean, it wasn't just like like it was because like he all of a sudden he appeared out of nowhere, and then there's this like group of adventurers, and he's a squishy sorcerer, so of course he needs people to protect him. So these guys are protecting him. Anyway, like I've also had other characters that people have been annoyed with, and like I didn't even know, and like if they had told me, I probably would have dialed it back some. It's one of those things like at that point, like you need to like tell someone that it's bothering you before like it gets to be like such a problem that it like nestles its way out of game, you know?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's why session zeros are really important to have everyone get an
Communication
establishment of
too.
everybody is and communicating that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
'Cause,
even
like
then,
even
oh god, sorry.
yeah, so even yeah, as you were about probably to say it, even then, like if something like gets worse over time, you still have to be able to communicate it during the game is like still going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
session zero only carries you for so long, and you never know how your character is going to evolve and the relationships. And I mean, I never get to play, and thankfully, because I've ran so much for you guys and guilted you into doing things, I've been able to do stuff. And Dustin's been running his game for about a year, I believe. Nobody's in here that's in there. Yeah. And I was playing a bard who's I write my own songs as a bard, and all my songs are shit talking the other members of the party. And he's just very, yeah. I mean, that's all I do, or I'll shit talk, the people in our games, and that's why. And we were playing. It wasn't Death, but it was somebody else, and the guy introduced his character. He was playing a chick, and the first thing he introduced about his character was the fact that she had a chest. So my character, being the goofy, annoying bard, just kept calling that person Chesty. But instead of using Chesty, I used a more provocative term, and I would call their character. Yeah, I don't know. I would just say that constantly, and then the character would get annoyed and not be as responsive until they started shutting it down, and then the player yelled at me for because that character ended up dying. And he rolled a new character who was wearing golden armor, so I called him Golden. tits, and then I got immediately backlashed and yelled at and told to take the game more seriously and to stop fucking around. I'm sorry, go ahead, Spike.
I love the space that you left there.
What space?
You're like golden tits.
Yeah, I was like, I was just, just because my bard's a jerk. So I'm like, all right, you're the new part. We were in an arena, and this is the new person coming in. I'm like, okay, you're old person, but so, and then I just got immediately yelled at, and I stayed quiet for the rest of the session, and I completely changed how I played that character from that point on. But yeah, like you said, Kai, nobody said anything to me about it, and I just thought it was funny that you never know.
Which it was, by the way.
From an outside perspective, it's funny, but if you're getting, everybody humor's subjective, and I I didn't pick up on the fact that the person was getting annoyed. I thought it was just in character, so I kept going with it until it was enough. And I know a few of us have probably been I know you have, Nate, been in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. I had like a character that was like a 7-year-old kid, and that became a lot for my DM because he was like, "Yeah, you might want to stop playing that character." I was like, "Okay, no more."
I did too, except
About to get real chesty.
it was a 45-year-old man acting like a 7-year-old kid.
A literal 7-year-old
I know. I as a DM get very annoyed with the way some of my players RP their character, but I get abrasive with them if they make like really silly, stupid decisions. But I've never had to tell somebody to completely change how they roleplay. I just deal with it because they're playing their character. I just don't like it.
I think the role playing could become annoying is if like, I love you, Death. I love you so much. I'm sorry I have to keep using you as an example. But like, I really do love him so much. But like, it'll be.
We all know it.
It would be something like, I'm using him as an example to say like to constantly try to kill every single person we come in contact with there's no talking. Like they'll be like, oh, that person said no, like we would have a conversation like, oh, well, we just need to know where this person is. Well, I can't tell you that. All right, I cut his head off. No, you don't. Like, no, you don't get to do that. Every I mean, like, you can't just. And so, like, we would start in character. Like, we would have to, like, talk to him and be like, you cannot cut every person's head off who says no to you or who does not do what you like. And he'd be like, absolutely, I can. No, you cannot. Because then we're going to have to stop you. And then he'd be like, whoa. Well, I mean, that's pretty much how we ended up going against him because we were like, you're not going to do whatever you want. And he was like,
you can't
so then I'm going to cut your head off.
Exactly.
What's wrong with stabbing people when they told me no? That's called rape, Death.
I think the best thing of that was when we started this new Levoxel city. And Frel's like, this is a list of the rules. And he's like, I pack my shit and I leave.
Well, then immediately says how nice the city sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're running a prison. And Phil's like, it's not a prison, Death. You can't kill people.
Yeah, it's a thriving city for a reason.
I'm gonna do this one thing that like has been outlawed. Well, if you do that, you're gonna die. You're making this a prison.
That wouldn't stop him though, Kai. He would just say that as a fact. I'm just gonna die. It wouldn't be speculation. It's okay. Well, my character is going to be dead.
Well, you said he couldn't do Shrek worship, and you were like, he's just gonna die then, and you're like,
no,
and then he's like,
I said he couldn't openly do Shrek worship.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh my god. It was just so funny. Bill's like, there's no murder. You could not sell your flesh for money. You could not. This place is a prison.
Which
he listed 2 rules.
So, Duality and Spike don't know these rules, but the rules were basically pretty simple. Let me. I'll pull them up in a second. You guys can tell me if you think these are are too crazy. But go ahead, let me pull up these
He
rules.
practically gave like a real, true, like authentic law to a city,
Yeah, yeah.
and they hated
What
it.
I heard, what I heard is prostitution is illegal. I can't sell my flesh.
Yes.
Mm.
Correct. Prostitute, that's what Bill was naming it. You cannot sell your flesh for money, aka no prostitutes, no murder, no stealing,
No blood
no
sorcery.
yeah.
I don't
You
want.
can and then
I don't want to live. I don't want to live here anymore.
yeah, Death was like, what?
What is prison?
He's like, you can't steal from people, you can't buy sex, and you can't kill them if they don't give it to you.
You
Sounds like a
know that
boring
last
town.
part is
You're muted, Bill.
Spike
that
into
last part
out.
is definitely rape.
Tell me if this is extreme. Rule. It's a bulleted list. No weapons allowed to be carried in town except smaller hand weapons for defense allowable by permit. No murder. No indecent selling of personal physique. No trespassing into the main city without registration, pass, and or escort. Certain parts of the city are off limits. Certain parts of the city you enter at your own risk. No stealing, murder, assault, vandalism, or acts that fall under these prerequisites. Stealing, no sleeping on the streets, so no squatting. No worshiping of evil deities, in quotations. Magic items are only allowed to be transported in town and must be registered. Being caught with an item outside of transportation will result in fines and or confiscation. And casting magic in this city, findable case by case, may seek arcane registration if abilities needed for everyday lifestyle. Destructive, mind-altering, concealing magics generally not allowed. Necromancy forbidden save supervised rituals by city officiants during seasonal events. Fines range from 15 silver to life in prison. And every time I listed one of these rules, Death would be like that. This place is a prison. This is
a
yeah.
cult. You're
Yeah,
running a cult,
literally the
Bill.
first two rolls I just heard there, I can already hear
Yeah.
Death saying
So-
this is a prison.
As great DMs in your own rights and not associated with the campaign, is that an excessive list?
No,
Not
well,
at
I mean, for one,
As
the only
somebody-
rule that I follow is the only law I follow is gravity. Everything else is a suggestion. Just don't get caught.
Yeah, okay.
As somebody who lives in a city, that all seems pretty, or who has
Mhm.
lived in a city, that all seems pretty even keel,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, the thing
Yeah,
is,
like-
though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the rules are absolutely perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But that also gives you a framework of which you can play a skullduggery type campaign or whatchamacallit, a kind of a cloak and dagger style campaign. You have to act
Mhm.
within the rules of the law, kind of like Vampire Masquerade's Masks, to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is that is why Death has such a problem with it is because, as anybody would know who has played with Death, with any character that he makes, Death doesn't want the rules. Death wants to go as far as he can, and he wants to be in depth in true fantasy and be godlike. So if you put
But he
constraints
does
on
that in
Death,
every campaign.
that's what I'm saying. That's what Death likes. Death likes to be godlike and have ultimate power and slay. So if you put constraints on him and his character, then he's like, "This is hell!" Ah!
He's a power gamer.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Wait,
mean,
the
he
store
just,
has a puzzle code on it?
And we
I
love
can't get in
our
here, it's a fucking prison.
and we love our special kitty, don't we?
I love him very much.
That's great.
He literally, I'd say, I like playing games with him. I do because, you're gonna laugh. You know, you're gonna have a good time. Um, but yeah, that's the only thing that was rough. Like that's like that, or like if somebody's playing a character and like I don't like the line. Well, that's what my character would do, and you're just like, is it what the character would do? Or did you hear something that you weren't supposed to hear, and now your character would do that? Like, but that falls along the lines of metagaming, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where you guys are having all these problems with Death. He's been a fucking peach in my game.
They're not.
Oh, I was
They're
Just
pretty
give
not
him
bad
a
for that one.
problems.
Give
I
it a
call
minute.
shenanigans. I call shenanigans.
Yeah,
We're
give
just
it a minute.
teasing him a little. He's not even
Like,
here.
I just-
you know.
Hey, Death is very well behaved in my game. He
I
really
He
just-
set a town on fire.
I am.
he
Yes.
actions, and they were full of bad people. I don't call what he did setting that town on fire bad because we needed to get out of there, and it was full of very abusive people. So really, Death did what he needed to do in that one. And did I let him reign free? He asked permission. He said, "DM, can I set this town on fire?" And I said, "You sure can."
He's been
And
really
he did.
awesome to like run because I mean I've been running the fist sessions on the server here. He's been really awesome to run for. So I don't know.
Oh, I enjoy
Everyone
having him
else
in my
too,
group. I
obviously.
do. I mean, as a DM, he makes my job so much easier. Yeah. I mean, second game, he is the cause of a huge major incident, and the fallout and repercussions are ongoing to this day. It's a tidal wave, and he just doesn't realize it. He thinks that what he did was justified and good, and he was doing the world a favor by what he did, and now repercussions are coming, and he doesn't even think that that's going to be a possibility of anything to happen. So he's a dream character for DMs. If you want things to happen in your game,
Exactly.
he will make those things happen in your game.
Exactly. I needed them out of that town. And Death was like, I can set it on fire. And I was like, yes, you can. Do it. Because we need you out of there. Like
I like how we drifted from
I just-
talking about roleplay to talking about death.
Death.
Yeah.
This is a subcategory.
Like
He
we've been
really
talking about
is.
it the entire show, dude.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we
yeah.
really
he's
have.
good at his role play. So there you go.
Just make it what the true star is. Make it about that.
Well, that's what he would say too. He would just say, "Oh, well, you guys all just love me that much," and take it as a
We
sign of
do,
flattery.
We
We
do
really
love him.
do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, here's a
Although
go ahead.
Although I will say that when we were playing, I did love Nate's double take when I brought up the worms and the one possessed person. And the minute that he saw what the worms were doing to this person, Death was just like, "Oh, get fucked! I run away." And Nate just did a double take. Like, did I just hear what I think I heard?
Tom did the
hell
same.
sorcery just happened there.
Tom did the same thing in a mini campaign where they ran out of a city because they didn't want to deal with it, and they got confronted by guards, and Death tried to shove his weight around him, and then it ended up running away from him when they were the intended fight to end the mini campaign. But yeah, he's a fun character. Non-death related question. I'm gonna skip. You know, if you roll,
All right.
Wait, who said all right? Somebody else.
That was me. That was me.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know. That's because this one is just another borderline death question. So I'm just gonna get away from it. I feel like we've talked about
that
death.
isn't here to answer it. It's asking if we're playing a disagreeable character, if we're worried about upsetting people. It's not really a death question. It's an us question.
I
We can't answer
guarantee you this will come back to death. I guarantee you
can't
it'll come
answer
back.
for
What if
death.
we- what if we
Actually, here,
give-
All right.
I'll answer it
If
for
we
death.
give
The answer is he
1
doesn't give a shit if you like play a disagreeable character, and you can get fucked if you don't like the character he's playing. So there you go. That's death's
All right.
answer.
So if go ahead, Nate.
Sorry, I was
Like
just gonna
he's
say
here with
if you
us.
don't. I was just saying if
All
you
right, go ahead,
didn't
Nate.
Want, okay. If you just didn't want to be on that topic, if you feel like it would get on that, you could just be like one thing from everybody.
Well, yeah, it's open discussion, but I think we can go death because now we're being death in this scenario. So
Yeah.
you're playing if you role play a disagreeable character or you're taking a very strong disagreeable stance in a campaign, do you worry about upsetting other players? And we'll just start with duality.
No,
Okay, Tom.
I don't worry about upsetting their characters. I mean, if they have a real, if I'm doing something at the table that's really just annoying them, and they're not having fun, and they don't want me to play anymore, that's one thing. But having a character that people just don't like, that's different. I had this one character, God, too damn long ago. He was fun to play. He was a second edition D&D mage. He had terrible stats. He got rolled up using 3d6 straight down the line. And the only thing I could make was like a mage. That would have been any good. Like his highest stat was a 14. He had like a 5 in charisma. So I took all of the gross, annoying spells. Stinking Cloud, Tasha's Uncontrollable Hideous Laughter, Web, and I flavored them to be casted in a really annoying and gross way. Web was a snot rocket. Stinking Cloud was a pull my finger joke.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't really like him at the table. He was a little obnoxious. They didn't like the character, but they still had fun and they still liked me as a player. They just didn't like that character too much. So I don't really care that they didn't like the character. It was kind of the point. He was supposed to be an abrasive, gross character. And as long as it didn't spill over into the players are having an issue with the player of the character, no, I don't really have a problem with it. Have you ever get snot rocketed with a web spell up against a wall
No.
and then forced to laugh from it because somebody cast uncontrollable hideous laughter on you? Awesome combo.
That only would have been perfect if you had them drink milk beforehand. So with playing that, and I'll have everybody ask this at the end. Would you prefer dice mechanics be able to influence your disposition, or disposition against being if you're disagreeing with somebody, you're subject to the roll, or would you rather be decided through the role play?
That depends on what's forcing the roll.
It's just another player. Like you and a player have a disagreement, or is that what you mean? Like you and another player having a disagreement, and they're trying to roll persuasion or whatever, intimidation against you to get you to do something, or think something, or agree with something.
So, I'm a mechanics first kind of person. I'm kind of weird in that regard. If the mechanics are going to be fair to be used against the NPCs, the mechanics are then fair to be used against the players. It's not a real popular stance nowadays, but at the tables I grew up at, in the environment where I learned how to play these games, what was fair for one side of the screen was fair for the other. So that's a session 0 conversation, but I personally have no problem allowing the mechanics to influence people at the table regardless of what side of the screen they're on.
Okay, I appreciate it. I have yet to play like that. I'd like to try it, but I also would think people would abuse it like death.
Well,
told you.
there's a caveat there, right? There is a carve out that I make. Something that would be completely against a character's alignment, or forcing them to give up like a prized possession, or doing like an active betrayal of somebody close to them. Probably not going to allow a dice roll to affect that unless there was a magical factor at play.
I agree about that 100%. Magic is the cure-all. So, all right, cool. Thank you. Tom?
I agree for the most part. I personally don't allow, I want you guys to role play as much. I want people to role play as much as possible. And, I'm not, unless someone just gives me an absolute fantastic reason why something should happen, I'm probably going to not do the mechanics roll, just for the simple fact that your character may have 26 in intimidation, and just you're gonna roll through all the other characters when it's just gonna make the rest of the characters pissed off. So unless magic's involved, I agree. I don't do the mechanics.
Okay. And if you're that disagreeable character, are you worried about the other side?
No, if I'm playing my character and I'm not doing anything that is metagamey or whatever, and I'm just being a pissy bitch, then my character's just being a pissy bitch. You just need to either get over it, or we need to have a conversation in private, in character, because there's too much metagaming where people are like, "Oh, that's him in real life." No, I'm playing a character.
That's more so for the question, because I know some people have a hard time separating that.
Yeah.
Grim, I can't imagine you've ever played a disagreeable character in your life, but I'm sure you've DM'd for one.
I've DM'd for a couple. I have never played one on my own, no. But I have actually allowed people to do a role, but then I'll tell that character, okay, he is influencing you, and you actually feel the reason that he wants all this done, and you actually understand his motives and do agree with him. But then I let them play through it. And one of the greatest ones I ever had was this character was a paladin, and they were telling him how they were going to get through, but they just had to lie a little and just pretend to be. And so he went over there and he's like, "Hi," and they're like, "What's going on?" And the guards, and "I'm here to distract you by telling you about the cupcakes." And they're like, "Why are you distracting us?" And he's like, "That's not the point. Cupcakes are the point." And it was just beautiful. And so after that, that's the way I kind of play it now. Is they influence you, you
Okay, I like it. Kai, I would never have thought you would have played a disagreeable character, and now I feel like you're just going to blow my campaign up before it even gets off the ground. But go ahead.
What? Me blow up your campaign?
Yeah.
Oh,
Not Theo.
Do you worry about people when you're playing a disagreeable character?
not really. 'Cause, well, it depends on who I'm playing with, I guess, as well. Because if it's somebody I'm like worried that they won't get this as like a character, I do kind of have to feel like I'm like, hey, like this is just the characters, you know. But like
Right.
I think if you're all like on a good level, it's like you don't really have to. You shouldn't have to like say like, hey, like you know this is in character, right? You know, because like I had a character. Well, my evil campaign that my character just got into a verbal disagreement with another character. We were both having to be well, at least one of them was, or the other person in the disagreement was like, you don't realize this is just in character, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I was like, "I'm literally the one disagreeing with you here."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just really depends on who you're playing with, I think. And what was the other half of the question again? Sorry.
Do you want dice mechanics to be able to influence the way your
Ooh,
character feels? Or
not really. I mean, it depends on who it's coming from, because if it's coming player to player, I think that's a no-go from me. Uh, unless you're, like, really, like, I can kind of understand that, like, specifically with, like I guess it depends on what kind of influencing you're trying to do. Because if you're doing, like, a persuasion role, I guess, like, it makes sense, but, like, I also don't wanna be, like, all of a sudden, like, you're, like, believing something that's, like, not something that you wanted to like believe in to begin with. Like it has to be like somehow aligning with like your current like goals and like how you play your character and how like the core of the character is, you know. You can't just like change somebody's mind so drastically that they're a whole new character making whole new decisions, you know.
no,
Oh yeah.
good point. Kind of like what Grim was saying.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question for you specifically on that then. You like to have the role play determine the result. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Generally, but I wouldn't disagree if someone was like, "Hey, like we can roll for this." I just feel like role play tends to be better at like because if you can get if you can feel the character and like the core of the character, you should be able to kind of like influence another character in a way like while being who your character is.
Okay. So, to that, I think we can all say that people have different role-playing abilities and skills. And
Yes.
The gentleman that mentioned the 26 intimidation, something I'm going to kind of leech off of for this. So if somebody's trying to lie to your character, and they just so happen to be another player character, and they're just not a strong role player, it doesn't matter how good of an attempt they try to make outside of the mechanics of the game. They will never be able to convince you what they're doing is the truth, even though they're trying to lie to you. They'll never be able to get a lie past you. So the only option is to force a roll where you're gonna have to go along with it if that lie is to be believed. Would you view that as a violation of player agency, or would you say that would be an okay application to force you into a role instead of a role play?
What I would say is generally it's better to not bring meta knowledge into a thing. So like you kind of have to be a little open-minded as your character and like think like you can't just like not be
That's not what I
open.
meant, though.
Well,
They
no,
can't role play that well. Like, they're
yeah,
just
no.
not good at role playing a lie. It doesn't matter. Like, their character statistically is an amazing liar, but they themselves, they just can't. Even if you take all the role play meta out, you almost have to metagame in the opposite direction in order to believe the lie. Is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, well, it's different with lies too, though, I guess, because if you're just trying to like influence somebody to be like, hey, like, you can convince somebody even if, but like, if you're lying, that's a little bit different. That's like a skill that you kind of have to like bring. You might have to bring a role in for that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, that's also like, I guess I kind of see that as Pathfinder rules, whereas it's like that would be a deception roll versus like or bluff check versus just like a
sense motive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
scaling is an issue here too, because we're talking probably about something very lightweight, where like, oh, I'm lying to you about that I've stopped smoking. Whereas I feel like the idea is more an idea so profound that it shakes the core of the character and changes their direction as a whole.
Well,
that school of strong neck orphans needs to be exploded.
That's when you get into DC levels of lies.
Yeah.
Like my character, who's going to eventually have to lie in your game, Spike, about watching somebody get murdered in cold blood as he just decided to, fuck off because he's like, not my monkey, not my circus. Not getting involved here. If the other players don't believe my role played out lie, I know Nate's character is going to have an issue with it. And Nifix is going to have a big problem with the fact that it's just like, have fun getting stabbed in the neck. I'm getting out of here. See you later. Bye.
There's a reason to disbelieve that though, like for their characters, like so like there does have I would agree that there does have to be a role there just to kind of like even out the playing field a little bit,
So what I do in my games is my general stance is, and this kind of fits both your points. My general stance is I don't enforce roles, but if the players wanted to come down to a role, either side, it's because that's the most fair, balanced way to do it. Then it's in your hands. Like me personally, I'm not role playing the characters. It doesn't matter to me how you guys decide to settle disputes and stuff like that. I'm just not going to enforce a role unless prompted. But yeah, I mean, I think Kai made a good point too. You have to be as a player, you have to be open to your character taking that hit and not metagaming. And like you said, duality, metagaming in reverse to remind yourself to believe that lie and stick to it rather than, shrug it off or lose it in the wind. Is that kind of like what you were saying though?
In a way, yeah.
But Nate.
This is a hard one for me because I was playing a character a while back that was influenced by two deities that practically could see it go any direction. So sometimes it came down to like, will I be influenced by this person, this player? Would I be turned by that? Because I'm like, I'm practically playing an evil character and a good character at the same time. This is something I would have to make a roll for. But when it comes to playing a character that has their stand on something, I do believe having that conflict. Xavier and Fennon are really good points on that. Having stands on those like strong points that should theoretically shake the core of the other character, but somehow more shakes the character that's trying to influence the positive change. And I think for me, like that was something that I was like, there's no way a roll would have fixed that. Because even if we would have went, hey, roll, and that made that character go, hey, you are starting to realize the aspect of your ways is starting to really interfere with the goal that you both as a group are trying to figure out, that player still wouldn't let it go. And I think, like to Kai's point, like you both have to have an open mind of understanding that that's the moment. You have to understand your character. Would they let this brush by or would they hold a grudge? Personally, I would be a character like in a fake scenario that if I watched something happen that they lied to me, they told me all of this, but then it's like, but this is for the bigger picture that they would like to try to paint for you. I would let that little influence affect that moment, but I would let through role play the real means affect it later. Because I'm like, if you're gonna stay true to your character, that alignment or whoever you want to be as that character, stay true to it. Because if that is there, oh, I just want to be able to screw with the way you want to play, you just now have to play with the way you want to play, but understand it has consequences.
So you would knowingly believe the lie without enforcement?
I I think if it was coming down to knowing a lie and you had to roll for it, being like, do I believe it or not? I think you would have to. But if it's like comes down to no one makes like the decision to be like, hey, let's roll for it, I think that's where a player has to understand how that character is going to deal with this.
Okay, I never thought about voluntarily just accepting the lie.
Because like if you accept, like I think that's what I'm trying to say is, if you come down to a stat block, let's say the deceiver rolls high, and your character now goes, oh, like I believe you. That deception by the DM at some point has to come down to some kind of consequence where that player has to understand that. Like, oh, I just witnessed this lie and he's being caught up in his own game. That like
I've
that has to be revealed somehow.
I've also done the like just believe the lie before. It's really
Mm-hmm.
fun to do in character.
Yeah, you can believe the lie if you feel like it's the best decision to move along, but also don't. I guess this is again coming back to it. If you're role playing a character, don't lose what you want the staple of your character to be because this character wants to play a certain way and you just have to give up the way you want to play.
Well,
Like
here's my
go
I
ahead.
have a question for you then, Nate. So if you're sticking with like the lie thing, I would say if somebody's lying to you, how if you unless you're metagaming knowing that they're lying to you, how would you know that they're lying? Really? Because if you didn't witness his character watching somebody get stabbed in the neck and you had no idea that it happened, but he comes to you and he's like, "Whoa, yeah, what happened? Like I have no idea." So you don't know that he actually saw it and
Mm-hmm.
he's lying to you. And like in a role play sense, if you're saying that you're just role playing, really you wouldn't you would just have to be like, "Oh, wow," like and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm saying is um you're saying that that would come up later. You're saying if it reveals itself, like if the lie comes out, like
Yeah, if
you
the
lied
DM
to me.
plays it, yeah, if the DM finds a way to make sure that character is noted and in that lie and decides to throw in the reveal because the DM chose
Oh,
to,
okay.
I'm like, that's where your player now has to look at that character, because now you have a spanned gap of how
Right.
you affected that character.
Right, that I
Like,
get. Sorry, I was
yeah.
misunderstanding. I thought you were saying that like you were going to flip out later, and I'm like, but how would you flip out if you didn't know he lied? Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that's what I was saying. If it comes down to a roll and it's you accept the lie or you don't, but even if the roll was that deceiver wins, you have to play by you don't know. But if
Right.
it's the other way around, I was saying you could just be like, oh, okay. But through that role play, you're just being like, oh, I accept that. But then later you're like, I know you're lying to me. Like, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
I
That
gotcha.
comes up later. To
Right, I
me,
gotcha.
that would be really more important through role play than just roll of dice and you go, okay, whatever, forget it. But I was like, for a DM in that situation, be
Gotcha,
smart
gotcha.
and realize what that lie could do for a character. Consequences have consequences.
So your stance is to put it on the DM.
I guess, yeah. Like, if that
If you're doing
situation does
straight
come
role
down and
playing,
it comes to roll, and
Yeah.
it's that, yeah, then the DM would have to make that decision.
Okay.
Like, does the DM, the god of the situation, think karma should bite this deceiver in the ass? So be it.
I mean, if it's something that just happened and it has no real relevance going forward, does it need to be brought back up?
Oh, of course not.
But then, to your point, does that
that's still the deal.
sour the initial lie and take away the significance of it, rather than you being able to play it out in that moment?
I think that's comparing white lies to, like, oh, you're the killer of my parents? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think,
That's
like,
what-
in that comparison, to me, I'm like, if I'm looking at it and I see it, it's very much a white lie. Like, oh, yeah, I totally earned this money. I didn't steal it. That's a white lie. I get it. But if I find out, like, oh, you killed a kid to steal this money,
A little bit.
then, yeah, maybe the DM would love to be like, yeah, let's bring this into the situation because I want to see what's going on here.
So I guess in that sense, I have a question for both Duality and Nate.
Okay.
Because like we're talking about my campaign a bit, and I'm just now curious. You guys had an instant where it was kind of a collective understanding between everybody that you were going to break everybody out, that it was going to be a try and make as big a noise as possible and get people out of this jail.
That's not what I agreed to. I wanted to just fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, but between Razik and people trying to pull people out of jail, but in this situation, you have a bunch of people who we don't know if they're guilty, we don't know if they're innocent, just like you, but we're letting people out of their jail cells. We even had a question later that was asked where, oh, did we help out as many people as we could? And it was something framed along that line. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
But in that moment, there was a point where Elix watched a dude who was innocent. He was just a drunkard, taking a piss, and just whistling to himself, and an obvious murderer who was about to kill again just because this drunk guy was in the wrong cell at the wrong time. And Elix walked away from it. Again, beautiful character moment. I love it. However, unless I bring it up later, it won't come back up. So of course it's going to have to come up to bite at some point in time. And even in that situation, once it bites, what happens then? Because we didn't know who was guilty and who was innocent. And at the same time, Elix did turn away from somebody who was innocent. This lie is multi-faced.
Yeah.
How would you guys want to role play out that in that situation? Would it actually come down to a dice roll? How deep in depth would this lie become in this multi-layered situation? Like, yeah, no, Elix didn't help everybody he could. And he did let an innocent person die. But that was a killer.
Also, you got to think too. You got to remember too. That character's basis is nobody knows what he actually looks like because he uses way too many applications of disguises and alter self spells. He's a professional liar.
And hell, it's gotten to the point where even in one situation, Elix revealed to Kareth he doesn't even remember what the hell he looks like anymore. And in that situation where lies and like slander have kind of been breaking apart the Tree of Ravens this entire time, again, more layers to that lie, like Duality was just saying. There's a liar in your mix who is who might be on a different side. You can't really trust them. I feel like
I
lies
personally would
get
like
to
a
a point
dice
of
roll to govern some of that. Because I'll be sitting there giggling like an idiot while going through some of this stuff. Even in character. Like, I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta do this now. Yeah, I knew this was gonna come bite me in the ass later. That was a good decision back then, though. Alright, let's get through this roleplay without...
Yeah, I think you have a lot to look forward with Tuesday, I'll be honest. Because I feel like the Tree of Ravens in that campaign scenario, there was an oath taken under that tree. And that's what Karis stands by. It's what he's frustrated by, even. So if there is a moment where a faceted thing comes into play, I can only imagine the fall apart Kareth would have going, if I can't trust you, how do I not know you killed Vickers? How would I not know? You got out of there alive and everyone was asleep, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's how he would be tying pieces at some point, because if he starts watching his party dwindle and you continue to stand, it's gonna become the hottest burning light and
think about how
reddest
often,
flag.
Yeah, and think about what I do in combat as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, how often do I take any damage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, he's gone above and beyond to say that he hasn't taken any damage and how easy these fights have been for him.
Mm-hmm.
The lie is on display.
I think, again, though, that is a role play choice, though. Like, if Duality is like, I still want to try to keep this lie going, I will still respect that through the role play if that's what he wants to do. But if he does go like, okay, you're now starting to make accusations, what do you have it off bases? That's probably where it'll start coming down to roles. Like, what do I have base? What do I have knowledge of? What do I understand? And then it's like, if it does get to a point where I'm like, yeah, for the character, he has no ability to truly have anything to stand on. It would just mean he's going to start losing more and more confidence in himself from that point on.
That's a tune in Tuesday for some fist fights at the table.
But no, like, it's a respectable thing, though. Like, when you are a player looking over at a player from across the table, you're respecting the way they play. And, you know, like, I can't imagine, and it's something I tell Frail all the time, too, that I'm like, I get deep into my role play, and I scare some people sometimes. They go, whoa, dude, you okay? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm just playing into my character, and then all of a sudden I'm backseating. I'm now like, okay, I need to cool off because it's making people worried. And
That's kind of the opposite problem. I don't really get into character too much because I play GM so often that it feels like a spotlight steal from other players at the table if I get involved in roleplay any more than like 30 seconds at a time. On the player side of things, it's like, no, that's for you guys.
Yep, that's how me and Dustin
trying to break you that slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like one of my deepest roleplay moments had to have been what Frail witnessed when I was trying to go after Virgil and had to cut my arm off to get that bracer off.
I'm trying to remember that because there was a lot of checking out during that for obvious reasons.
I just remember I was like screaming, I was yelling, I was like getting into it. I was huffing and puffing and everything, and Travis was like, I wish like we could hear more of this. Like, Jesus.
Was I there for that session?
You were.
Was I dead?
Were you there? You were the DM.
No, you were alive. We were all inside that thing. We all got
I was like,
teleported.
do I even know you?
Who are
Question
you?
mark?
Anyway, I guess it was a great moment for me.
Dude, you gotta understand. I've tried to block out.
Welcome to my world, Nate.
I remember you cutting your arm off because after that the campaign ended like 2 sessions after that because I wasn't there for one of them.
Yeah, you weren't there for the one when I came back to with my partially rehealed arm. And he played your character, and I hated it.
Well, yeah, because
he just didn't do it right.
Yeah, well, which was funny because it was a paladin. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that, man, but I feel like there was a lot leading up to that moment that made me check out, and I apologize.
He practically had you watching a door and not letting your character like gain any insight on what was going on inside.
Oh, when I was okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I got you. I know
Dude,
exactly what you're talking about.
I watched people die in that room that
Right.
shouldn't have died.
I
and
know exactly.
Joe was
what you're talking
doing
about.
nothing.
That's when Joe,
because he wasn't there.
Yeah, he caused the whole problem to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just needed
right.
that reminder.
No worries. No worries. It was a long time ago.
It was a great moment, Nate.
Thank you.
So what
least
we've
you remembered.
learned is
Yeah, shut
what
up,
we've
Lauren.
learned is lies are multifaceted, and that question's a bit difficult.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why we bring it up. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part, and I won't keep this on me too long. My favorite part is when I talked to Elix across the campfire and he did that stuff, and I asked a very important question. He lied right to me, and I just pretended that the character just understood it that way.
Did I?
Yep.
Did I? I told
That was me.
You just occupied his night tonight with 4 hours of Tree of Ravens trying to find out where that lie was.
I mean, like, I tell a lot of lies in games, so it's like
Yeah.
really hard for me
Yeah.
to keep track of them all.
Yes, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. I'll tell you which was. I asked what happened before Vickers died, and you said when he betrayed us, I did what I could to fight back.
I said
And
that?
I was like, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I as a player was like, motherfucker. And then in character, I was just like, oh,
You're a
like
saint.
having to play into that, and then was just like, God damn, I hope that doesn't come back to bite you in the ass. But if I know Spike,
Start of Tree of Ravens. Hey, remember when you didn't help?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that-
remember making eye contact on the camera since he said that. See if Spike was looking.
Of course I'm looking. I'm always fucking looking.
Um,
God sees all. Sorry for making loser talk about Tree of Ravens. My bad.
well, it's a nice step away from talking about death. Lauren, you want to shit on death real quick?
No, I was
people
going to
are paying
answer the
double for that.
question.
Go ahead and answer the
Yeah, go for
question.
it.
Talk about Tree of Ravens.
Death.
I think that, like other people said, I think it would come down to situational. If it's something like that where somebody's trying to lie to you and you can't help but attempt to make metagame, I think that it should be down to like a role. Like if your character's trying to convince another character, like, no, I definitely did not steal your boots. I have no idea where they went. Like, I don't know why you think I took them. Like, and you're just like, I know you took my fucking boots. Like, you know, like, I feel like you should have to like roll against that. Like, see if you believe that he took your boot or that he didn't take your boots. Like, come on. Like, damn it. Like,
Yeah,
I think
especially if
that
it goes like two back and forths for too long, and then you're
Yes.
like, okay, get a roll into play.
yeah, just roll because like you guys are not gonna agree on this, and so like that I totally understand. To that with believing lies and everything like that somebody's saying to you, and yeah, it coming out later. I think that's kind of cool though because it could lead to your character development of like maybe you did like if you did it role play wise, you just believe them like, and you're like, oh okay, and then it came out later and revealed they lied to you. That's actually kind of a cool thing for you to be able to role play to be like, I trusted you. Like I thought you were my
Absolutely.
friend.
That
And
gap just made a bigger scar.
yeah, and then for you to be like, okay, like, well, my character would normally believe something like that, but after being betrayed by this person, like, no, I'm definitely going to be a little bit more like, yeah, you're gonna have to roll against me because I've been lied to too much in my life, like, sort of a thing. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
So yeah.
I'll make sure to throw more of your lies in your face. This is sorry.
I'm pretty sure out of the two of us, I'm not the one who needs to be having their lies thrown in their face. Anyway,
Alright,
what's the next question?
Talking about games. Nah, it's Spike's turn.
Spike had his
Oh,
turn.
oh.
Just kidding. No.
Oh God, back on the spot.
So in Tree of Ravens,
I'm right. So I try to monitor things essentially again according to like role player versus audience member because I know a lot of people like there's a lot of people who just can't lie to save their lives and they have trouble even conceiving of what the lie could be that they could tell. And sometimes in that situation I'll let it just come down to a roll and then I'll narrate how the lie came out so that it makes it more like here's our now conscious belief of what was just talked about here so that we both have it. We can walk, all three of us have it. We can walk away from the table with this knowledge and we can play with it as needed. And this way, it's not like some kind of a nebulous effect. And I'll try to frame it in a way that makes it kind of believable. On the part of role playing, I love when role played lies come out, obviously, with the whole Tree of Ravens talk that just happened. However, I had a character who was playing in my games who was a charismaniac. He had a level, a 20 in the charisma. And I don't know why. I guess he was just in a mood. But I was like, all right, so let's roll out because you guys are asking for a roll to find out like what's going on. No, it didn't even hit the roll. It started out with, all right, try and convince them then. Convince them on this thing that you're trying to convince them. And he goes, well, first, I clap my hands together. Then I tilt my head to the side as I spread them apart, and I go, come on. And I went, that was your whole fucking argument right there? That was all you had?
Come on, man.
Come on. Are you sure?
Come on, man.
Me?
hold on,
Come on.
I'm writing this down for Tony.
And like it,
Me, Daniel. Come on. It's the cheese and the sauce and it.
Oh, we
I
love
don't
Tony.
use paper. I use cheese. Come on.
Yes.
Oh, the
That's
cheese.
amazing. You don't know how hard it is to get cheese off a pan when it's cooked for too long. That's the paper.
That was so fucked up. I told my friends about that. They were like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on either."
It helps them glue to the binding, okay? It helps.
Sure.
Go ahead,
You
Spike.
what? You're gonna start melting down horses or cheese?
We derailed. Sorry.
Go ahead, Spike.
but as you could tell, like what really better charismatic thing could you have done? Look at how that acted. But in a situation, he was really like he was recommending the most horrendous thing possible in this instant, which was absolutely just the move of I want to do chaos things, and this is the most chaotic thing I could think of. So fine. And then, like, I was like, "That's your whole argument?" And he was like, "Yeah." I look at them once more, and as I see the disbelief on their face, I go, "Come on." And they wouldn't like buck from this, so eventually it came down to the fact that the other player is like, "All right, I put my hands up and I walk away from this idiot." And I was like, "You know what? That's justified." And the other player got upset with me because he was like, "I have a nat 20. That come on should have worked." And I'm like, "What?
What?
In what universe does come on work?"
And
Yeah.
As good as that story
That
was,
was the
Spike,
prelude to a bad night.
the question was, if
Huh?
you were the disagreeable player, do you care about the other side?
I haven't had too many times where I was the disagreeable player, but I'm also one of those ones who brings in characters that I'm like, you know what? Let's play. Lie to me. I'm gonna enjoy this.
Okay.
And I'll just like sit there and try and work around it for a bit to see if they go, because I'm also usually trying like playing the gullible character.
Fun.
Yeah. So like I'm just the guy who wants to make friends, and I also find it like a lot more interesting from the other side of the field when I'm openly lied to as the guy who's just soft-hearted and wants to make friends and doesn't understand. And then later, when the lie is brought up, I'm like, "But you told Fleck that you. Why would you say that to Fleck and not mean it?" And it just comes into those like it hits those feels from a different direction and like makes the player have to kind of bounce around that. And I love that. But if it came down to a role too, I don't think I would mind so long as it wasn't anything gravitas and earth shaking. Like
Yeah.
if I was an orphan who grew up in an orphanage, who builds orphanages and wants them all to be like the best orphanages possible, and this guy is like, well, look, he's recruiting from orphanages. The only way possible to stop him from recruiting from orphanages is to blow up all the orphanages. I'm sorry, I don't think I can go along with this. One, that was crazy, and number two, like, there's no amount of "come on" you can put on this that's gonna fix that.
Come on! Come on! Who cares about those thick neck orphans?
The worst part is now that
Sorry, go ahead.
the worst part is now that I said that, I know I'm gonna get it back in Tuesday because Duality's gonna have some crazy shit he's got to convince somebody of, and he's just gonna go, "Come on,
Come on."
I totally forgot to answer the first part about being the disagreeable player because I was focused on the rolling
That's
thing.
fine. We knew what your answer was. You don't give a shit about the other side.
No, I do care because remember in the other game that I'm playing in, there's a person who does not like the way that I play my character and went to the point to say that people like that because there's another person who plays like I do. People like us who play like that ruin the game for them. And we were both like, we aren't trying to ruin the game for you. And she's like, you make it all about that and it's not about the point of the game. And we were like, no, we think that like we could put a little bit of flavor into the game. Like I I feel like if you want to role play a disagreeable person and like you want to be able to have those like snappy, sarcastic-y comebacks with somebody and like actually get to role play that, you should be allowed to do that. Like just because you as a person are solely driven on wanting to only do what the point of the game is, I think that that's annoying because I've played with people like that and I'm like you like this game isn't just about the fact that you want to hurry up and get through the game and do the goal. Like there's other people who want to play too. And I don't just want to steamroll this game. I don't just want to run and do the objective and be like, yeah, you know how you came up with this character and you built this whole background and like you want to actually play it out? Yeah, screw that because we need to do this. Like that. So in that sense, like I don't care if you don't like it, but also like I kind of want to be like, you're not the only person in this game. I don't think that I should be able to dominate the game with role playing this disagreeable person, but yeah, you're gonna fucking sit there and listen to a little bit of shit that I have to talk because it's my character's background. If you don't like it, you should probably not play a game with a group of people who all come up with backgrounds. You should probably just play a fucking board game because that's what it sounds like you want to play.
Fair.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. You're
Same
gonna run
here.
into diversity of people gonna butt heads somewhere. As long as people are being respectful of that by player choice, then it should be fine. But yeah, like when they start going, your way is annoying, it's like so is the exactly polar opposite.
Yeah, we luckily had somebody else in that game be like, I actually really like how they play their characters. Like, it's refreshing to have people who are actually bantering with people. And I was like, thank you. And the other person's like, thank you. And she like messaged me in private and she was like, I was really scared there. She's like, I thought you and I were like a problem. And I was like, here's the difference. I don't give a fuck because I'm having fun. And I was like, and this person literally does nothing in game but only wants to like trudge through and stop everybody from talking to each other. And it's obnoxious. Like, I just want to be like, do you actually like playing D&D? Or do you just want to play a game with people? Because it's like, I mean, I don't know. I don't get that. I never understood that. Like, you want to play D&D, but you don't want anybody to role play. You just want to stick on topic. I don't know.
For reference, she's talking. The other person was Chaos, and the person who was
No, it was
throwing
not.
shade was Tom.
No, it was not.
Dun, dun, dun.
It was
Hey,
nobody in this. It was nobody in this server.
Yeah.
I got the feeling it was an AD&D player because that's back in the dungeon diving days. So I can also see them being a little bit cross about that and acting like it's a problem because they're not used to it.
A douche and dickhead
But
player.
yeah, I mean,
Hey,
No,
that's
no,
the
no.
AD
I'm
nonsense,
not
though.
talking about you, Duality. I'm just making fun of that person.
Yeah,
I'm
just
excited to play
in
second
general,
edition.
I got to stick up for second edition a little bit. It gets so much undeserved hate.
Hey, I'm all for it.
listen, man.
I'm excited to learn something new.
I want first edition love. I want to be a wizard who can cast giant form on myself, save my roll, and then get 100% checks on my grapples. I want to slam bitches.
Only if you understand how to use the attack matrix.
Watch me, I got this.
Well, that is 2 hours. I didn't think we were going to get there, but all we had to do was mention death and Tree of Ravens, and the conversation took care of itself. I will write down the notes for next time. I think we touched on making a character to RP and changing it in game a little bit. Nate's thoughts on video games and the TTRPGs. That's an interesting topic. And Kai's and Duality's powder keg of alignment and uses in campaign, which that could be a month-long chat.
I'm so excited about that one because I have very specific thoughts about that.
Yeah, I could talk at length.
Oh man, I will dig out all my alignment resources from various games for that one.
What about not
And
believing
I'll break
in
out
gods?
more.
What
Huh?
I'll
about
break out more Tree of Ravens material.
Yeah, we'll just keep a running tab. And thank you all for joining. It was fun. Appreciate it. And Grim
Yeah.
stayed through the whole time. So let's give a big round of applause for Grim.
Ooh, Grim.
I don't think you can hear me, but I'm applauding.
Roll, Grim, to see if you can believe Kai.
Well, if you believe it.
Dude,
I didn't hear nothing.
Try harder!
But my mic doesn't even I do tongue clicks sometimes,
There you go. That works.
I golf clap for you, Kai.
when you do the finger guns and you do the tongue clicks. But my mic doesn't pick that up either.
So you're tonguing your mic to.
No, tongue clicks. Like when you do the. Yeah,
Okay. Sorry. I'm just
And my
picturing you
mic
licking
doesn't
your
pick that
mic.
up.
I don't know why.
yeah, I'm licking my mic.
All right.
No, it doesn't pick up that either. So I was like, oh man.
How do you know? How do you know your mic doesn't pick up you licking it?
Not that.
I-
Tongue clicking. God damn.
Well, we've got into a weird.
Don't lick your mic.
I won't lick. Oh, why is everybody obsessed with me licking my mic? I'm not doing that.
I mean, we weren't obsessed. We're getting there.
Yeah, I unfortunately
doing
caught.
that.
I unfortunately caught Frail off on that one where I accidentally made noises with my mouth, and he's like, "Oh my God, Ned, I hear that in my ears! Stop!"
All right. I will see some of
Oh
you
my
Thursday.
god, I hear that in my ears.
I will see none of you
Indeed.
Wednesday, sadly. And oh no, I'll see Nate. Which group are you in?
He's in my group and Kai's group and Tom's group.
Oh yeah, so I will see
And
some
my
of
group.
you Thursday.
Yep.
All right.
Is it this Friday that we're doing
I
the thing?
picked an arbitrary Friday, and you.
Okay.
I told you the people who were involved, and you never followed up. So you tell me.
No, I was just been looking at it. I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm good for this Friday. Saturday is going to be a nightmare for me, though. Oof, I got 3 games on Saturday.
Sorry.
I think I joined
Yeah.
your Discord